why an all-European war will not take place. Europe has invested in its strategic stability to preempt and prevent the occurrence of another comprehensive European war. I am also assessing the significance of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. It will not really escalate into a wider European conflict. There will not be a future all-European war. This will not happen. Few people predict that the current war between Ukraine and the Russian Federation will deteriorate into a pan-European war, and it could be similar historically to the 30 Years' War from 1618 till 1648 that bedeviled Europe centuries ago. There will not be a war in Europe following or as a result of the current strife between Ukraine and Russia for many reasons. This potential European war is not desired and is not necessary. And it is not desired or necessary to correct things in Europe. Things in Europe can be corrected through different effort, and they could also be corrected and rectified and modified for the better by themselves. There are those who want this European war to happen, and there are those who do not desire this pan-European war to happen, so things can balance each other. In addition, the conflict in Ukraine and Russia will be ending at one point in the future, and that will not usher into a wider European war. Moreover, there is enough international order and a fair number of pan-European organizations who could manage and end any conflict, and I can here refer to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. They can settle any conflict. Anything in Europe can be corrected to prevent such a war from happening. European leaders now as well are less proud than previous European leaders. Therefore, they can accept insults and they can tolerate misbehavior, and they can wait to launch a war. There are many people in Europe and elsewhere who care about peace, fighting world hunger, protecting the environment, and helping developing nations and other global issues. They can stop a war from happening in Europe. The conflict in Europe can be institutional. And it can take the form of countries withdrawing, say, from the European Union. This have a historical analogy. And the historical analogy it has is with the Reformation. Many nations left the Roman Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church remained. By the same token, many nations can quit the European Union or end their association agreements with the European Union in Brussels. But the European Union will continue. Managing the conflicts among several European countries and the European Union can be one way of avoiding national feelings and national strife in Europe. War tests the power of conscience, and Russia's heart is still European. Therefore, Russia will never do anything militarily or politically to destroy Europe. The moral life of Russia will not pass away with the war in Ukraine. There is still so much moral stock in Russia to redeem the mistakes of the war being conducted now against Ukraine. There is no simple or complex objectivity for a comprehensive war in Europe triggered off by the war in Ukraine against Russia. There are no wider strategic implications proceeding from the impression produced by the Russian war now in Ukraine. Had Russia wanted to invade the Baltic, they would have done it in April 2022. They would have done it in April 2022 or even earlier. The 30 Years' War was primarily a religious war between the Catholics and the Protestants. Religious zeal drives people toward warfare. People in Europe now have less religious zeal to engage the continent in a religious war for, say, 30 years. The method of warfare in Europe during World War II was blitzkrieg. It was an armed assault against heavily populated urban centers. This is the most inappropriate way to conduct war now, since European cities have mushroomed, their numbers have multiplied, their populations have tripled or increased significantly, and they became more fortified and better protected. So no urban assault by tanks or armored vehicles can take place to subdue a country. This will not happen. The individuality of leaders waging war is evident how wars start. None of these figures who are in power in Europe now is matched or is similar or is equivalent to the personalities of those who gravitated Europe toward a long war twice in the 20th century. There will not be sufficient encouragement for a big war in Europe because most European countries now are democracies. The opposition will stand up against any demand or any charge for a comprehensive war in Europe. War in Europe could be just an act of fanaticism. The war between Russia and Ukraine is Pharaoh versus Moses. A potential war between China and Taiwan is Goliath versus David. However, they are only regional wars. They are only regional wars, let me repeat. Lenin said imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. We can paraphrase him saying regionalism is the highest form of nationalism, and the European nations will not fight each other comprehensively. Thank you very much for watching this YouTube video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called Bill Mikhail channel. Press the like button, and I am waiting thoughtfully and respectfully your comments. Thanks again.